We whose journeys are always beginning, we whose missions always awaits us, we whose visions are bent on loving, we gather together here. We gather as a community drawn together out of a common need, each toting our own carpetbag of treasures and dreams. We gather together seeking meaning, yearning to understand life in all its dimensions. As it challenges and expands, as it burdens, as it consoles and heals, we gather together with questions, the kinds of questions that provoke us to the path of action. We gather with hope, the kind of hope that pulses on through uncertainty. We gather with tenderness, the kind of tenderness that can only be born from knowing human capabilities as well as human imperfections. We gather wanting certainty and having none. But we are wakeful of possibilities. As we seek discernment and gentle judgment, we gather, then, unbounded, but close. I was in the middle of the grueling 5-hour drive to my lake cabin and already running late when I saw the signalman's sign, 1 lane ahead. I cursed and took my place in the long line of cars that were waiting to move forward. It was hot. So I lowered my windows and turned off the engine. As the minutes passed, I noticed a light breeze that wafted across the grassy meadows outside and tickled my nose. The screen door of a farmhouse slammed, and a shirtless boy and his tongue-lolling dog tumbled onto the yard. On the power line above me, a meadowlark was trilling. My breathing slowed and deepened. Without this road work to bring me to a halt, I would never have become aware of the breeze, or the boy, or the bird. In my eagerness to get somewhere, I had become oblivious to all the wonderful somewheres I was speeding through.
Thank you, Dale. I remember as a teenager sitting on the shores of Lake Metagoshi up by the International Peace Gardens at Pilgrim Park, a summer camp of the North Dakota United Church of Christ. I would marvel at the beautiful blue lake and the sunny blue sky, the trees with the wind rustling the green leaves. I would notice the technological impacts humans had had, like boats, motorboats, and skis, and how the park itself had developed with as little impact as possible, using logs to sit on, rustic buildings, and only a few narrow trails through the forest to get from one part of the camp to another. That was out of respect for the special beauty of the place and because of poison ivy. I thought there are scientific explanations for the biology and the ecology I was enjoying. Human beings were finding out a lot about how the world works and where we might be in the universe. I knew I could learn more about that if I wanted to. I thought of my family and how fortunate I was to have the love and support and sense of openness and freedom. My siblings and I were growing up with a sense of appreciation for thinking and talking things through. And I thought of the good fun I was having at camp with kids from all over North Dakota. It was different than it was at school or at home. The camaraderie and friendships and a sense of how good people are. We explored the park, laughed, sang, swam, shared stories around a bonfire. I didn't think much about God or Jesus. This was a United Church of Christ camp, and while those religious concepts were talked about, it was pretty much allowed to be metaphorical. I might not have known it at the time, but I was putting meaning into my life. Life is what it is. Meaning or inspiration wasn't something that came from outside, like a god or a spirit or something supernatural. It came from within. Apollo astronaut Jim Lovell said, "We learned a lot about the moon, but what we really learned about was the Earth. The fact that just from the distance of the moon, you could put your thumb up and you could hide the Earth behind your thumb. Everything that you've ever known, your loved ones, your business, the problems of Earth itself, all behind your thumb. And how insignificant we really all are. But how fortunate we are to have this body and to be able to enjoy living here amongst the earth and the beauty of the earth itself." That quotation is meaningful to me, who now at this time of my life has said, okay, I'm an atheist. I would believe that quote is also meaningful to those here who have a more spiritual outlook on life. The context of my talk this morning comes from the changes that have been promoted at the Unitarian Universalist Association level to move the UUA from probably majority humanism and atheism to a more religious and spiritual modes of operating and thinking. That is playing itself out in many ways across the country. Some places ignore it, some embrace it, some are arguing, and some are erupting. This congregation's program committee has been discussing these different concepts and is trying to have programming that will help us talk about our differences and find our similarities. As UUs, we do not believe that we should not just say, okay, never mind, our humanist atheist past will now all become spiritual. As our principles say, we should talk about it. Not just once, but in a continuing conversation. This congregation has the wherewithal to determine our meaning and how we want to be. I don't know how that conversation will end up. That really isn't the point. The point is that we have a good, respectful, honest dialogue along the way. Today I'm going to talk about inspirational atheism as part of that dialogue. This will not be, fair warning, this will not be an in-depth thesis dissertation on what atheism is. But I do hope today that you'll find a greater appreciation for what is inspiring and that it will be an invitation to more discussion here and there. That quotation from the Apollo astronaut Lovell came from this book titled The Inspirational Atheist. It's by Buzzy Jackson, and the subtitle is Wise Words on the Wonder and Meaning of Life. I stumbled across the book while searching the net several months ago. The author says not everyone in the book is an avowed atheist, but the secular wisdom here can inspire us to appreciate our world as we strive to understand it. She did not include people whose religious faith was the defining aspect of their identity. So while people like Martin Luther King and Sojourner Truth are incredibly inspiring, she did not include them out of respect for their religious commitments. The book brings together some of humanity's greatest insights on subjects that all people, believers to atheists and everything in between, return to the subjects that we return to in times of great joy, stress, and challenge. The author's intention is assembling them together in one collection can help us appreciate the common values we share. There's a lot in here. Humanity's been doing a lot of thinking. From the section on happiness. This is a Chinese proverb. You cannot prevent the birds of sorrow from flying over your head, but you can prevent them from building nests in your hair. Happiness isn't on the road to anything. Happiness is the road. Bob Dylan, quoting his grandmother. There are shortcuts to happiness, and dancing is one of them. Vicky Baum. There's something just as inevitable as death, and that is life. Life, life, life. Think of the power of the universe, turning the earth, growing the trees. That's the same power within you, if you'll only have the courage and the will to use it. Charlie Chaplin. From the section in the book on emotions. I have great faith in optimism as a guiding principle, if only because it offers us the opportunity of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. Arthur Clarke. Hope is the feeling we have that the feeling we have is not permanent. I like that one. By Mignon McLaughlin. Stanley Kubrick. However, vast the darkness, we must supply our own light. Everything can be taken from a man or a woman, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. Viktor Frankl. These are from the section on emotions. One more. Western civilization places so much emphasis on the idea of hope that we sacrifice the present moment. Hope is for the future. Saying we should refrain from hope may create a strong reaction, particularly the ones I just read. But the shock can bring about something important. I do not mean you should not have hope, but that hope is not enough. Everything we want is right here in the present moment. Thich Nhat Hanh. From the section on wonder. The world is a stunningly interesting and glorious place at every scale. And the awe that one can experience because one understands something about how the parts are put together is, I think, far greater than the sort of awe of incomprehension. Daniel Dennett. And the last one in this series is in the chapter on gratitude. It's a Vietnamese proverb. When eating a fruit, think of the person who planted the tree. 2 or 3 of these a day might be helpful to anyone, don't you think? As I was putting my talk together this morning, I remembered one of the things that has struck me from my childhood. One of my best friends in junior high was from a family that was atheist. To put this in context, this was Minot, North Dakota in 1964. My friend, his parents, siblings were the kindest, most engaging, friendly, caring, involved in the community, loving, and genuine people that we knew. They did not believe in God. They did not talk about spirituality. They did not worship, but they had decided to live very meaningful lives. Now, quotes that kind of match that that I got from other places is Kurt Vonnegut said, "I'm a humanist. which means in part that I've tried to behave decently without expectations of rewards or punishments after I'm dead. And Carl Sagan, I would love to believe that when I die, I will live again, that some thinking, feeling, remembering part of me will continue. But as much as I want to believe that, and despite the ancient and worldwide cultural traditions that assert an afterlife, I know nothing to suggest that it is more than wishful thinking. I'm going to come right to this congregation because this has been a definite source of inspiration for me for 28 years or so. There are 3 programs from the 1980s that have stuck with me from the 1980s. One of those programs we had, the speaker was one of the first people in Bismarck to get the AIDS virus. And we held hands in this room and wept with him. An incredible 20-something South African woman named Nomande Ngubo, who came here to build solidarity with striking coal miners at the invitation of the North Dakota Peace Coalition. She had this room rocking with solidarity music. It was incredible. You could feel it. And Janice Chaney's program on the sacrifices of women who built the suffrage movement and what it did to their lives and what they accomplished. All 3 of these programs resulted in uplifting our emotional and thoughtful support for each other. We not only knew intellectually, but also emotionally, that together we could make the world a better place. We had invested in meaning. In life, we are the ones, each of us, who determine what is meaningful. Of course, I have to talk about major social, economic, and political change. It does not just happen. It is made to change by people committed to making it happen. If people do not act to put their own meaning into it, there is no way that those with power allow changes to happen. And a couple other quotations from this book, one on emotions. From Helen Keller, although the world is full of suffering, it is also full of overcoming it. George Orwell, if liberty means anything at all, it means the right to tell people what they do not want to hear. And a quote for 2016 by Zora Hiley Hurston, grab the broom of anger and drive off the beast of fear and fear-mongering. It wasn't until recently that I wanted to try to be clearer about atheism, agnosticism, spirituality. Having experienced the death of my father, I had come to terms pretty much that there is no life after death. My father lives on in his children and all the people who remember how he touched their lives. Having experienced my children being born, I was even more in awe and wonder about how marvelous life can be as it is. Gloria Steinem said, childbirth is more admirable than conquest, more amazing than self-defense, and as courageous as either one. Being a father and a husband are truly the most meaningful parts of my life because they matter to me. I found one of the best summaries of atheism as a foundation of how I want to live. It was on the website called Living Without Religion, and I'd like to share it with you. It's very short. It's really quite simple. We are part of the natural world. We marvel at the vastness of the cosmos, and we relish our place in it. We experience the universe as an active part of it, fascinated and inspired, because we're made of the same ingredients as butterflies, blue whales, giant sequoias, and spiral galaxies. We see each other through humanist eyes, as fellow human beings, as cousins, equal in dignity and deserving of compassion and respect. We cherish our loved ones and treasure our short time in the world, so we tackle problems using the most successful methods ever devised: science, reason, and free inquiry to improve our lives and enhance the well-being of everyone. We do not fear the unknown, but rather take courage from the wondrous discoveries that have already been made. We accept that our lives will end, but we find hope and take great joy in knowing that life keeps going. We see ourselves as one tale among millions in the magnificent and ever-evolving story of life, and we are thrilled to be here. One of the similarities of religious and non-religious people is to enjoy and thrive in community. And there's a growing trend around the world for atheists to come together, sometimes on Sunday mornings or any regular time to be together, to talk and sing and dance and play and share and be supportive and be inspired. Atheism provides foundational meaning and inspiration in life, and sharing in that community helps people grow and thrive. Isaac Newton said, one of history's greatest geniuses wrote, Isaac Newton was one of the history's greatest geniuses, and he wrote, "No man or woman, however brilliant, can hope to understand the mysteries of the universe alone." As I think more about the world and about delving deeper into thinking about what it means to be human at this time, I am most intrigued by the non-religious. As I get older and explore ideas and scientific knowledge, learn more about atheism, identify inspiration from the world as it is, I have a yearning to be free from religious concepts such as spirituality and worship. To me, religious concepts limit the potential for my understanding. By allowing myself to move beyond religion, I want to go in that direction. It does not mean that we need to have a dialogue about that, but I'm speaking for myself. Atheism should be part of our public interaction. Atheism, non-religion, is growing rapidly in the country. It is the norm in Europe. We should not allow others to continue to marginalize us as a legitimate historical outlook on life. Matthew Iglesias said, "Atheism, just doing the intellectual work of explaining and debating things without reference to the supernatural, not devising ever more intricate proofs that there is no God." We don't have to devise those proofs. There is no God. The point is, life is like a play or a jazz band. We do better when we talk with each other. Thinking and talking things through is a good thing. Not ad nauseum forever, of course, but enough to get a good answer, especially in this congregation, Unitarian Universalism, where we have a lifelong discussion, a dialogue that we engage in, is not a one-shot thing. Life is a journey. As a young kid on the shores of Lake Metagoshi, or anyone's life, life is about making meaning. And in closing, I want to read a short selection from The Atheist Way, Living Well Without Gods by Eric Meisel. He said, "Life isn't about finding yourself. Life is about creating yourself. Life is as much a responsibility as a gift, and that each of us is honor-bound to create ourselves in our own best image." Thank you.